What's going on, fellas? You guys have listened to me through the months and years, going way back. Um, this is a common complaint that I have uh, on the extreme flights. It's not like I'm making a big, causing anybody any grief. Like the planes fly great, you know. Um, but yeah, if these control horn trusses were wider apart, you could get the Dubrow conicals, in between the trusses, and then you have all this freedom. Instead of this way, it hits pretty quick. Hits right there. It's already binding. Um, so on the ailerons, I take and in a lot of the planes on the elevators too. I think most of them this year, I'll take and just reslot the slots. I'll just carve them out to where I can put a conical on each side. I just make it wider. But what I've noticed on the elevators, it's not as it's no problem on the elevators because it's lined up straight. It's not pivoting at all. It's just going straight up and down. So you don't need conicals to get any freedom there because it's going straight back and forth. Doesn't need freedom. But what the guys like to do at Extreme Flight, they always talk about it. They like to get that washer in there on each side to get a little space. Actually, these washers are really too big. These are the ones that came with it. You can get the same ID washer that has a tiny OD. I have a bag of them somewhere, and that's what I'll use in these circumstances. And then you get more pivot because, here it just ends up hitting the washer the same way it would hit the truss. So, but again, it's not important on the elevators. But here's the thing that I've always hated. Like, let's say it's even not important on the elevators, but you glue the truss in and then you put the ball link and push rod, and bolt through later with this thing already glued in, the truss already glued in. Well, it can be a real fiddly affair and time consuming and frustrating. Does is for me to get that bolt through and then slide the washer on, then slide the ball link, then try to slide the other washer on without you could just keep dropping the washer and everything. Got these little micro needle nose that kind of help with it, but it's a real pain in the ass. When you got to do a bunch of them, on a plane, it's a nightmare. So I've kind of continued to, not like any of this and just want to slot my trusses over, which really doesn't take me that long. This plane, I slotted the trusses over on the wings, and I'll do it also on the rudder. I'll have that'll be 2 new slots. On the wings, I just did 1 new slot for each control horn. On the rudder, I always do 2 new slots, just completely change that location. But on the elevators, like I said, you're lined up straight. There's no pivoting. It's just going straight back and forth. But I just noticed today, so that's all, criticizing the extreme flights, which again, this is a trivial, criticism. It's not a big deal. These planes fly awesome. I keep getting them. This is a minor complaint, but what I just realized, and it's probably what the extreme flight guys do all the time, is if you put those washers on before you glue in. So here we are before you glued in. So if you put the bolt through, at this stage, and then you put those washers on and the ball link and the other washer and then the other truss and then the washer and bolt, it's real fast and easy. It's not like when you've already got the control horn glued in and then you try to double back, the next day and whenever the glue dries, and then put the ball link on with those little washers on each side of the ball link. That is a frustrating experience. But if you put the ball link on first, and then glue it in. So this isn't glued in, so I'm going to glue this in now. But the fact I did it first, it's pretty easy. You don't have the little plate on there when you do it. You put the plate on after and then glue it in. So that's probably what the EF boys already are doing, and that's probably why they will say, oh, we just put a washer on each side of the ball link, like kind of nonchalantly, because they probably do it this way, because this way there's nothing to it. So I just wanted to show that since I'm the one that complains about this, there is an easier way to do it. So let's say, I think probably all you guys are not going to reslot your ailerons and rudder like I do. And a lot of my elevators I reslot too, even though it's quick and easy, I must say, but you guys are probably not going to do it. And you're throwing those washers in, tell you two things to kind of counteract my criticism. One, if you do it in this stage and then slide the plate on, where's my plate? Right there. And then glue it in, it's so much quicker and no frustration. But also, let me tell you this, if you don't use the washers that come with it, there they are, these washers, you don't use these, and they're kind of standard, you see in a lot of the packs of hardware with our stuff, we get these washers. But you go ahead and order yourself some washers that, see, these are kind of big on the ID. So you want to get, a pretty much exact 3mm ID. And then, see, look what we got right here. What is that? Oh, yeah, see, that's a conical. And you see how the conical from Dubro, it has the smaller hole. Because that's the exact hole. I'm trying to do this in the camera. Yeah, that worked. So you want the exact 3mm hole. And then you want so that's a smaller ID, but just big enough ID. And then you want the big point is you want the smaller OD. And then you won't get the bind. Can get that out now with one hand. But yeah, this is a fat conical, but it looks a lot more like that in comparison. Pretty much identical to that. So it's got the slightly smaller ID, but the 3mm still goes through, but it has the much smaller OD. And then, instead of it hitting, like right there, it pretty much hits at the same spot it would hit the truss. So you're not getting anything by putting that washer in there to speak of. But if you put a washer that's this size, same as the conical size, but that's the conical, so you wouldn't use that. But yeah, you can find these and order them. And if you put those in there, then you're able to pivot quite a bit the conical space or the washer spaces over, and you can go all the way until the ball link hits the truss, and that gives you more pivot. So if you were to order those special washers, if you were to assemble your control horns with trusses, with the ball links, with those special washers first, then glue them in, it wouldn't be a very frustrating experience, and you'd have a lot more freedom than a stock setup would get you. I could see you guys doing that, especially if you guys had those washers. If I handed you a stack of those washers while you're doing your plane, I could see you doing it. No problem. You'd go ahead and use those washers because you'd see how good they worked to get you more pivot freedom. And you'd go ahead and bolt the whole assembly before you glued it in because you'd see how less frustrating that is. So yeah, that would be cool. Still, to me, it's pretty quick and easy just to make new slots where I want them and use conicals. But yeah, since I criticized it, I thought I'd show where, you could actually have a pretty decent result pretty easily. But it's still key to get the better washers, to get the smaller OD, because if not, it kind of doesn't really help. You're still banging the washer the same place you would have banged the truss. You're not really getting more pivot. Anyway, had to throw that out there. All right, out.